Hey Kids Cook Real Food. Katie Kimball here for the Healthy Parenting Connector, and I am beyond honored to be sitting face to face with a priest, not in confession, which is also great, but an interview is even better for all of you who get to listen. Our guest today is Father Leo Patalinghug, and he's known as the cooking priest. He is super famous. I'm very honored to have him here, and we're going to talk all about connecting families around healthy food, our mutual mission. Thank you so much, Father Leo.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I don't know if my audience is very familiar with you necessarily, so I'll give the official introduction and then we'll jump in.
Sounds
Father
great.
Leo is known as the cooking priest. He's in the community of consecrated life called Voluntas Dei, the will of God. He's the creator and founder of an international food and faith movement called Plating Grace, and founder and chair of the nonprofit group, the Table Foundation. Father Leo is a best-selling author, acclaimed international speaker, podcast, and TV host. And Plating Grace is just an amazing, fun, family-focused ministry seeking to bring out a future of stronger families, closer relationships, and a deeper understanding of Jesus as food for our mind, body, and soul. Recently, Father Leo is spending all his time and more, I hope you're sleeping, Father Leo, with this big food truck project that we'll talk about a little bit. Are you sleeping enough, Father Leo?
You know what? Just like everybody else, you have to sleep when you can, and I'll say it's enough for right now.
Okay, I totally understand your answer. I know that code. The answer is no, he's not sleeping enough. So, here at Kids Cook Real Food, we talk a lot about connection, confidence, and creativity for our kids in the kitchen. And I think Father Leo is primary on connection with a big side helping of the other two. So, Father, you seem to have two callings in life. Serving God and serving food to others. Where did all this dual passion come from?
Well, actually, that would just be one calling because
Okay.
we're the servant in general. And as a priest, they call me Father because I have to provide the daily bread and give spiritual nourishment. And I just find it easier to touch people's hearts and minds if I go through the stomach. But they also call me pastor, like a shepherd, because my job is to feed the flock. And let's admit that the truth will taste better if it is wrapped up in a delicious quesadilla with creamy Parisian sauce or Latin chimi fresca or Asian island. And so basically what I've got to do is kind of imitate what Jesus did thousands of years ago when he used food as his first three miracles to kind of promote the faith to people. So from the wedding feast of Cana, the multiplication of the loaves and fishes, and then just kind of feeding the hungry, using food analogies all the time, because that's how people relate, through their stomachs.
Seems like food is the way you open the door to conversations about God, which aren't always easy to get started. So I think you're onto something there. Father Leo, you and I both believe that food connects human beings in really powerful ways. Let's talk about the family dinner table. How important is it that families gather together for dinner? And what do you tell parents about how to make it happen?
Yeah, I don't actually say it's important. I say it's necessary.
Mm.
And there's a very big difference between the two. When I say necessary, it's because it's integrated and part of the way we were made in God's image and likeness. But if you were to think about it, even God wants to eat with his people. From the very beginning of the scriptures to the very end, food is part of God's plan for people. So it's not, internet is important, but it's not necessary. A family meal is necessary for the healthy development of young people. The statistics are very clear, and this comes from CASA, the Center of Addictions and Substance Abuse at Columbia University. They said if you want to reduce drug addiction, teen pregnancy, teen suicide, teen alcohol and substance abuse, plus improving a teenager's testing scores, the number one factor in all of that is a regular family meal. And I want to always just qualify it for families because it just makes them nervous. Like regular means daily. No, it means regular. So it could mean like weekly. It could be every day. It could mean every other day, or it could mean every day except for when you can't do it. But it lets people know that there is something regulating their life. We all need order. We all need norms. We all need some concrete foundation. And so how do you get people to do it is why I wrote my most recent book is called Saving the Family. And it is the transformative power of sharing meals with people you love. That's the subtitle. And it teaches people how to eat together as a family, from when you're a parent feeding your children mashed peas all the way through the different generations to the point when your children are feeding you mashed peas. And so that book teaches the techniques on how to eat as a family when you're going through different stuff. So it's common sense, but organized with recipes to help you to do it.
I like too that you give families grace. Like, don't freak out about doing it every day, right? We do the best we can. I believe the research shows benefits begin at about 2 family dinners a week. So it's not, you don't have to be a superhero. But gosh, a friend of mine just said that one of her acquaintances had never, ever eaten a family dinner until she came over to my friend's house in high school. And I thought, I didn't even know that was possible. I couldn't fathom that, but just, different worlds, different family situations, and necessary, not just important.
You mentioned
Now,
you don't have to be a superhero, which is interesting because in the book, Saving the Family, I say, but if you are one of those people who is inviting and encouraging and instituting, and that word institute means teaching a family about family meals, then you become a superhero. And so I just kind of add another P to that awesome word. And in a sense, you do become the hero of the family. Let's admit it. It's the one that brings everybody together. And it's at that meal where you can solve some of your greatest problems, or at least realize that you have one. And therefore, that in of itself is part of the solution that saves a family. And again, saving a family doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, but it means that you have the wherewithal and the desire to share a meal together, that you long for that. And that speaks volumes to why the person who creates the meal is important, but the person who buys the food for the meal. So if there's a parent working, the person who sets the table, the person who cleans and washes the dishes, everyone's got to be part of it, because we need to let everyone in the family become superheroes at some point in their life.
beautiful. Well, that's my banner, is that if everyone eats, everyone helps, and we share family responsibility. So, right down to our toddlers, if they can put a spoon in the dishwasher, they've contributed for sure. Now, what about the sticky situations? What about disagreements or difficult conversations at a meal? Do you have practical tips for families in your book?
Yeah. And I actually encourage families not to bring them up at the dinner table necessarily. I mean, there are some things you have to talk about, but let's just make sure that the family dinner is a place and time where you can just be together. And if you want to address a problem, say, hey, after dinner tonight, why don't we talk about that, grade, or let's talk about that other haircut that you just have, or let's talk about that relationship that is seeming to cause you a desire to break away from the family. And I also think that some of the things that can be done is to invite the problem to the table and show that you are more than just that problem. So if there's a boyfriend or girlfriend that's really just annoying mom and dad, invite that person to the table and say, and we're just going to have a nice dinner. We're not going to talk about anything, but we just want to get to know them. And then obviously afterwards, we can talk about the things that bring us concern. But that mealtime has to be an opportunity where you work on building peace, where you let the differences be put in the proper place, but you let the things that keep you together as the highlight of the meal. Because if not, then the meal just becomes a source of contention, and then the food doesn't even taste good. So you could have an amazing meal, but if you keep bringing up a problem, it's not going to taste good. So why don't we just simply say, let's just have a meal together and we can talk about it afterwards. And then you find those common grounds and you build that peace and you realize you're more than a problem. You're someone I love, you want to spend time with, I want to feed.
Well, you're really creating a challenge, I think, for a lot of families. It's one challenge just to get to the table physically, food, people, table, all in the same place at the same time, right? And now you're saying, let's be intentional about this. Let's make some ground rules. No dissension here. We're not going to talk about our problems. And I'm completely fascinated by that. I love the idea of not mixing problems with food. I will say, though, a huge stressor for families, Father Leo, is picky eating. I mean, it just is a disaster as far as making family meals feel good. Yeah. Do you deal with families with picky eating? Do you have tips for that?
Well, I deal with customers have picky eating from the food truck. I mean, it'll be funny to tell this anecdotal story, actually true story. But you mentioned, we're creating challenges. I'm not. I'm creating invitations for families to not make the problem bigger than it needs to be.
Sure. And I meant a challenge in a good way,
Yeah.
not a suffering.
Exactly. But I want to just let families know that get rid of the drama when it comes to the family meal. It's just food. It's going to turn into fertilizer at some point. And the reality is it's the time, and you mentioned the word intentionality. It's got to be a, sorry to say, purpose-driven meal. It's got to be a purposeful opportunity where you let the time, your service, your togetherness speak. And even if you're not talking about a lot of fun things, or even if talking about not so fun things, let it be an intentional time. Like I'll go and visit my mom and dad, and I just have breakfast with them because I'm so busy, and I'll try to make it early. I'll say mass for them and have breakfast with them. And that's purely intentional so that they know I love them. I don't have a lot of time. Let's not do a lot of talking, but you just know that my very presence is because I love you and I care for you. And they show me their love by literally making such a big breakfast. Not any 8 people can eat it at one time. I'm like, who's going to eat all this, mom and dad? But, as a kid growing up, I was also picky because I think people don't realize that the pickiness comes from either a lack of experience, a lack of development on the palate, textural issues, smell issues, memory issues. So what I encourage families to do is to talk about why they don't like a certain food. And then the technique that many families use is you bring the kid in so that they know what they're making. They make it, they can become proud of it. I mean, I have a kid who can do an amazing roasted Brussels sprouts recipe, and he hates Brussels sprouts, and he still won't eat it, but he at least appreciates that others appreciate his meal. And why is this key? Because a kid has got to at some point grow his palate, his or her palate. And it's so important for that child to know that when they turn their nose against something because they don't like it, it hurts. It hurts people's feelings. And they need to know that. And so if you make a meal and you're making it, how would you feel if I said, that's disgusting, I don't want to eat that? It's going to hurt them. So maybe it's not disgusting, maybe it's different. Maybe it's a smell issue. So we got as parents and cooks to work on the smell issue. If it's a textural issue, kids like crunchy, and so we got to make sure that vegetables are not mushy because they're not babies anymore. They've got teeth, nothing to use. But crunchy in a good way. So it's just as easy as saying, okay, you steamed your vegetables so that flavor and protein is kind of preserved, flavor and nutrients are preserved. But it's not going to take 3 seconds for you to put it back in the broiler with a little drizzle of good oil, a little bit of Parmesan cheese and panko, and just broil it so that it has a little textural component. Then you can articulate to your kids that you're listening to them about their pickiness. Because the last thing we want to do is have a picky kid grow into an incredibly annoying, picky adult eater.
I think so. I agree. I love that you brought that back to the interpersonal relationship, right? To teach the kid to think about the cook who's serving them, and to teach the cook to think about, serving the child. So when kids get in the kitchen, like how do you see yourself as a role model, encouraging kids to be confident and to try things in the kitchen?
Systematically, because it can actually create danger and a problem in the kitchen altogether. So what you've got to do is, in age-appropriate ways, invite the children after you've done your mise en place, which is basically making sure that everything is in place. You can invite the kids to come in to either help you set it up or make sure that it's in place so that you can do it. Now, is this going to happen every day? Good Lord, no. Who has time for that? But there has to be intentionality to it. So growing up with my mom, she was the cook, and I was with her because I was the youngest, and so I wasn't in school yet, but I was always cooking with her. But as we all started getting older, she was like, you're doing Monday, you're doing Tuesday, you're doing Wednesday and Thursday, all right? So, like, I'm mom, I'm not your slave, I'll help you make this meal. And so that happened like at least once a month. There was like a time when we all had to do it. So look, is there going to be any perfect setup? No. So please don't imagine your family dinner to being a Food Network episode, because it's not going to happen. But the quality that is communicated when you make the effort will be just as impactful as remembering grandma's apple pie when she dies. Mm-hmm. So these are memory-oriented, mission-oriented meals.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, so I know you and I, being Catholics, believe the family unit is God's design to raise children, but culture disagrees. Family is under attack. How do you explain, and I don't even want to use the word importance anymore because you don't like that word. How do you explain the necessity of parents staying together to those who think it doesn't matter?
So I think it has to come from a real lived experience. Okay. You can't force anything on anybody. But it also has to be honest. I think I know in my book, as kids are getting older, parents have to just say to their kids, this is going to be something we do. There will be no questions. There's a reason for it. I don't even want any excuses, and no complaining. If you start to complain, you actually create more problems with it, and it becomes a burden. Let's just explain what it is. And so for my family, all of these holidays throughout the year, they're great, but they're like, whatever, we do this every day. We do this every Sunday when we get together. And that makes the holidays even more special, to be honest with you, because we're celebrating with a greater sense of connectivity, not just our family's connections. So I think it's got to be very honest. It's got to start at the get-go. And even if you're like, kids are 18 and 19 years old and they're like, what are we doing? Then you say, well, here's what I'm doing. I'm letting you know that I'm going to die at some point. You don't know how to cook. And I failed. I kind of didn't fulfill an obligation when you're growing up. And it's going to be weird because you're very independent people. So how independent are you that you can actually act like an adult and now cook for me? Might not happen. So let's at least do a couple things a couple times a month so that we're intentionally doing something that will be a memory for you when things aren't going to always be as happy. My mom was not afraid to use guilt. And neither should you, moms and dads.
Well, I mean, it sure sounds like you're saying that parents have an obligation to pass on the life skill of cooking to their kids.
Eating and serving. Cooking can be done by even just non-rational animals. You have machines that are cooking for you. You have people you don't even know putting your food together, and people delivering your food. You don't know what they're doing with your food. It takes a tremendous amount of trust for someone to cook for you. But it takes trust to know that someone is serving something to you. So again, I can teach anybody how to cook, but I have to teach someone who I care about to learn how to lovingly serve, provide a word called hospitality, which is rooted in the word hospital. I mean, our world is messed up right now. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, in the middle of COVID, it's messed up because we have no hospitality anymore. I mean, food has become so impersonalized. Your favorite mom and pop shop places are closed down. The only place where you get something to eat is something so incredibly impersonal and questionable in the terms of its health benefits to you. And then even on the psychological side, you just simply click a couple buttons on your phone and food shows up. What does that do to you? It makes you think that everything is on demand, and not everything is on demand. Some things are worth waiting for and sacrificing for, like a meal.
Preach it, Father.
Well, that's what I do. That's what I do.
I know. I'm just cheering you on. Now, what if adults in the home don't know how to cook? Like, you're the parents already. Can the family dinners happen with this impersonal, like McDonald's style food, or should everyone get to know a knife and a cutting board?
Both and. So I never live in an exclusive either or world, because that's what idiots do. They don't realize that you can actually have choices and you can maneuver through these difficult realities. So for those parents who don't know how to cook, grow up. I mean, it's called the internet. Learn a cookbook. Learn a recipe that you enjoy and share that knowledge with your kids. Learn it with your kids. Why couldn't we do both that and at the same time say, look, all I'm good at right now is making a salad dressing from Father Leo's book. So I'm going to make you get the bucket of chicken. I need you to learn how to toast bread. And there's another really simple thing. There's a spice rub you can put on top, and I'm going to make a salad. So guess what? we worked together to create not only a delicious meal, but something that was doable and something that's going to be memorable. And why not? I mean, some of my favorite memories are coming home from Mass on Sundays, and we went to the farmer's market, and we always got roasted chicken with their incredible barbecue sauce. To this day, I can't imitate, but that came from a store. The roasted chicken came from the store, but my mom put together the salad, and I learned how to make rice. All the kids had to learn how to make rice. So we came home, we immediately had assignments, make the rice, put the salad together, put the chicken out, set the table. That was store-bought chicken. It was amazing store-bought chicken, but it was store-bought chicken. Why can't we do that? We can. Yeah. Just people are just putting way too many expectations on the family meal. It doesn't have to be Instagrammable. In fact, we already know that Instagram food is fake. And the best looking food is the unctuous stuff that has stuff dripping all over, you know, and the plating isn't pristine. That's good food. So let's not compare our cuisine with others. Let's just be intentional and provide love and care for people we're feeding. Isn't that a commandment? You know, get to heaven. Did you feed my flock?
All kinds of food. Yeah. We have a lot of parents who admit to me that they're learning to cook along with their kids, you know, in our classes. And I love it. I said, don't be embarrassed. Just do it. Just do it together.
That's going to do nothing but teach your children that your mom and dad are humble enough to admit they don't know everything. And how awesome for parents to learn something together with their kids. Hey, why don't we try learning about our faith together with our kids? You know, I mean, the spiritual nourishment. But if you're going to do a recipe, good. It shows that you don't know everything and that this could be something that you work together on. And guess what? When you leave this world, your kid is going to make that memory of you.
Oh, absolutely.
I got emotional thinking about that. Sorry.
I know. No, I mean, one of my favorite stories of our members is a mom who said she was so tired, 6 p.m. and her 2 boys said, "What's for dinner, Mom?" And she said, "Ugh, what are you making me?" Like as a joke. But then half an hour later, they had, you know, burgers and a homemade salad and a homemade cheesecake and a side vegetable because all 3 of them pitched in. And I mean, that's the beauty of shared family responsibility. When one of us is down, you know, the rest pick us up. Now, what about couples? I mean, the hub of the family is the mom and dad having a strong relationship. Do you use food to teach couples how to strengthen their marriage?
I don't have any of my books to show you, but one of my books is called Spicing Up Married Life. And it encourages monthly dinner dates. So if you were married on the 12th of the month, every 12th, just have an intentional dinner. And the menu is made for 2. So, but it goes through 12 chapters, 12 recipes, and 12 topics that couples need to be discussing at the dinner table with just the 2 of them. Because parents, you need to go on dates again. Because if not, you get really boring and you get kind of annoying to people. So keep that spark alive. Continue to go on dates because those dates showed that you weren't dead, that you were being creative, and you were trying to impress, in a sense, the person that you were serving and make it exciting. So the meals are there, but then the topics are there. Then there's questions and prayers so that you can gauge in that discussion. But it's also telling your kids, Mom and Dad need a dinner away from you all because we need to work on our relationship. Because if your kids don't see Mom and Dad working on a relationship, your kids are going to think that relationships are easy, and they are not. You need to have focused time. And by you making that time, you're intentionally telling your kids, Mom and Dad are working on our relationship. Not only because we love each other, but because you saw we were getting kind of snippy with each other. And so we need to work on that. Kids, learn from this. And your kids should be part of it too. Give them the book. Make them make the dinner. Make them serve it. In fact, this idea came when we were kids. Like my mom and dad were arguing about something and we just hated it. We hated the feeling of like, what's happening? So we cooked and we served and we were like trying to encourage them to be romantic and loving to each other. And it worked. Mom and dad's marriage is not perfect, but they are so faithful that they're now celebrating their 57th wedding anniversary.
Beautiful. Just great. I love that. And being able to do a dinner date at home is a lot easier for families who maybe have very young children or don't have easy babysitters or less expensive babysitters than, the grandparents, because you can put the kids to bed and then just have a late, French style supper.
I mean, you could even make it all in advance. And just, I guarantee you, though, that if you make that meal and order pizzas for that kid that one night and just pop in a movie, that's a win-win situation.
They're happy too. Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, you've talked a lot about service and the act of service and food being much more than even nourishment, which is important, but service too. Tell us a little bit about this food truck project, because it seems to be a very service oriented. And I want parents to be thinking too about raising their kids for that attitude of service.
The truck is called Plating Grace and Grub. So Plating Grace is my organization. People can learn about it at platinggrace.com or platinggraceandgrub.com. And the truck is serving international comfort food. So you have a choice of 3 things on the menu. Choose your main: beef, chicken, shrimp, or vegetables. Choose your method, which is a quesadilla, noodle stir fry, or a salad. And then you choose your mood, which is one of 5 sauces: creamy Parisian, Italian seaside, Latin shimmy fresco, barbecue USA, and Asian island. So you pick and choose what you want to eat. And so the menu is 3 M's. So it's main, method, and your mood. And what I do with the truck is I serve not only just regular truck service. I just got back from truck service, hot and sweaty. I had just enough time to clean up so I didn't stink on this conversation. But I also hire and work with returning citizens, formerly incarcerated, ex-offenders. And so I give them a formation program for 6 months to a year with a job, but a community. We do everything to help them develop into a fine person, an upstanding citizen. 4 pillars on their educational goals, their spiritual goals, their professional goals, and then their human goals, how to just be a better person. So we work on those 4 things each month, one of those pillars, for 6 months, discussing a virtue. And then we also serve the poor. So like today, we handed out almost a dozen meals, because we just saw them walking in the street and we just offered to them. But we also partner with Franciscan Center in Baltimore. That's where our commissary is, where we park our truck, and it's with them that we're going to do bigger service, like delivering food and creating, meals during holidays and such, where we're going to put out the tables and sit and eat with them. And with the truck, we can serve hot food. So it's going to be just a unique and exciting thing for us. We're only a month and a half into it, but we're learning so much. They're enjoying it. We're not making a ton of money yet. So if you know people who want to support the truck, we're always happy to take those supportive donations, but also partner with us. Because if there's a church that wants something, we can provide that food for you all. And that just creates good opportunities. I paid all the bills. So let's put it that way. We paid all the bills. We're not a flop. We're learning the ropes on how to be successful, faithful, smart, lucrative, but also mission-based.
Well, it's so multifaceted in all the different ways you're serving. And I love just how organized you are and systematized in all the right ways. And we're in a tough spot right now to be starting a food truck. Let's just, no matter when you're listening to this, it is July 2021. We're just coming out of the pandemic. I hope that everyone listening knows that remained true. I feel skeptical, but it's also a tough time, I think, for Catholic parishes, at least in states that were very closed down, like my state of Michigan. I don't know what you're experiencing, but I would love to hear how you're encouraging priests to get people back. Some folks had a year without the Eucharist. I think a lot of habitual Catholics fell out of the habit. How do we get them back?
I have real strong opinions. Not that I need to be canceled or anything, but I just think that, a pandemic is created when there's such an overwhelming problem and there are no solutions. So the pandemic was certainly a reality for maybe 2-3 months. And I think it just became the buzzword so that people in authority could exercise their authority, some incredibly well, by learning that there are ways to deal with people getting sick, and also learning how to make life continue to go on and not focusing on death or sickness, but focusing on healthiness and how to prevent death and sickness. Because the fact is, and these are facts, that more people died the year prior than they died during the year of the pandemic. We also know that it was politicized, and if people don't realize it, then they need to have a healthier digestion of news and media, because I think that is feeding the brain and encouraging unhealthiness in the mind, which creates people to become incredibly uncritical in their thought process. My father is a physician. I consulted many epidemiologists and doctors so that we actually were able to continue to continue our mission and our work carefully and cautiously, and nobody got sick. So it is very possible to do that. So I think the pandemic was just abused. And I think that if people are being honest with themselves, they allowed themselves to be bamboozled by politicians who did everything they could to put on draconian and dystopian laws in place, but never followed it themselves. So if you want a healthy diet and critical thinking, watch what they say, but watch what they do. If you're saying we can't gather, but they literally encourage protests by the thousands and not have any repercussions, problem. And this is, again, where people might get upset with me, but I'm saying we got to have a critical thinking. What are you feeding your mind with? So here's what I encourage families to do, and priests and pastors: stop watching the news, read more, discuss critical thinking with experts, not just, I mean, everybody became an epidemiologist on Twitter. Everyone became an authority on everything. No, get to know those people, practice caution without being cowardly, practice faithfulness without fearfulness, and then make sure that you are healthy before you start telling other people how to be healthy. It's so shocking that the doctors all knew that people with certain conditions, whether it be obesity or heart problems or asthma, they were more susceptible. But what happened was that healthy people became unhealthy in their mind. And then we literally lost a sense of healthiness because people just started eating out more with fatty or saturated foods. So I just think that this past year gave us all a chance to make the healthier healthier. The sicker, unfortunately, became more susceptible, which is why the best form of sickness is a healthy diet. Doctors all know that the number one form of health is a diet, making sure you're eating healthy. And that doesn't mean boring, because my food is healthy. It tastes delicious.
Well, amen to that.
About that, Katie.
Yeah, no, I mean, so much stress happened in people's minds, and so much fear and so much isolation. It was definitely very,
to a degree. I mean, news was never so annoying when it was just at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 and 11 o'clock with a morning thing to just catch up the day. With 24-hour news cycle and literally repeating and regurgitating, you're being force-fed a lot. And we don't have the constitution to digest food 24/7. What makes you think you have the constitution to digest news 24/7? So a good healthy pattern of eating should be maybe the way you receive news, but also the way you should pray to discern what you hear. So just a little diet plan for you.
Mm-hmm. So priests out there need to be the good example. They need to lead with faith and not fear, and courage and caution, and not.
A lot of our priests are overweight. They're not healthy. They need to learn how to cook for themselves and eat healthier. Look, I'm not in perfect shape, but I just know that it can be a sedentary life. So you got to eat healthy. You got to know where your food is coming from. You also have to make sure you're eating with parishioners and families and friends and brother priests. If all you're doing is eating alone, watching the news and shoving something down your throat, my brother priests, my brother ministers, you're not healthy. So you're not going to be as a credible witness. And I'm not criticizing them to be destructive. I'm offering an absolute scientific, bona fide observation so that we can find the problem and realize that the solution is just right there. It's a change in the way you live. It's a change in how you eat. It's a change in what you eat. And then also being grateful, because our bodies are temples and we have to fill it with good things.
Father Leo, this has been great, and thank you so much for really your intentional words, your challenging words, your necessary words. But I love to leave parents with a message of hope. So if you could encourage families out there in one way, what do you want them to remember today?
Sure. That the hope has got to be rooted in reality. And hope is one of the most challenging things, the challenging of all virtues, because it's having belief in something that you don't see. And so here's the hope, and here's the fact. When your kids are growing up and they're annoying you because you're kind of requiring them to eat together and you don't see it, I can tell you it is making a difference. You don't see it, but I'm telling you it makes a huge difference. And they're not only anecdotal, but there's just scientific evidence, and my family is a perfect example. My sister was the biggest pain in the rear. She's a wonderful person, but she growing up had a lot of struggles, a lot of demons, and a lot of challenges. But it never stopped my parents from eating with her. And literally, when she ran away, we found out where she was, we sent food to her. Now she's my parents' best friend. She's my parents' travel partner. She's my parents' bodyguard. She's my parents' everything. And where did that come from? Well, because you feed someone you love. And even though you don't know it, we have to believe that that is a great virtue. Jesus even did it himself. And if you don't feel like it, have hope that it is making a difference. Because this sense, your taste and your smell, is the strongest sense. Make something delicious, and I guarantee you, your kids will eat it in memory, loving memory of you.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so very much for your time, Father Leo. I'm honored. Our audience is honored. Healthy Parenting Connector listeners, I'm Katie Kimball for Kids Cook Real Food, and I will see you back next week for more connection, confidence, and creativity.